My name is Maya Patel, and I'm 31 years old. What happened at our annual family reunion last Saturday night is something that will forever change how my relatives see success, failure, and which family member they should have been supporting all along. Picture this. My Aunt Priya standing in the middle of the hotel banquet hall, wine glass in hand, telling everyone with an earshot that I was still unemployed at 31 while other cousins snickered behind their hands. But 8 hours later, as families were settling into their hotel rooms, every phone in our extended family lit up with the same notification. Our entire family WhatsApp group. You see, that notification wasn't just any news story. It was the announcement that Maya Patel, the unemployed family disappointment, had just been named to Fortune's 40 Under 40 list as the founder and CEO of a tech startup valued at $47 million. The same niece my aunt had publicly mocked for still trying to figure out her life was being celebrated as one of the most promising young entrepreneurs in the country. Before we dive into this story, please take a moment to like and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy stories about underestimated people getting the ultimate vindication. Where are you watching from? Drop your location in the comments below. I love connecting with people who understand that sometimes the most satisfying success stories are the ones that completely blindside the people who never believed in you. Let me take you back to that Saturday afternoon when I walked into the Marriott Grand Ballroom for our annual Patel family reunion, knowing I'd be facing the usual barrage of questions about my career status and life choices. Our family gatherings were legendary for their size, over 60 relatives spanning 3 generations, and equally legendary for their brutal honesty about everyone's personal business. I'd been dreading this reunion for weeks, not because I didn't love my family, but because I'd spent the past 2 years in what appeared to be professional limbo while actually building something extraordinary. In complete secrecy. To my relatives, I was the cousin who'd quit her stable marketing job 18 months ago, and had been mysteriously unemployed ever since, despite having an MBA from Wharton and what they considered every advantage necessary for traditional success. What they didn't know, what I couldn't tell them without jeopardizing everything I'd been working toward, was that I'd been living off savings and a small inheritance while developing a revolutionary app that was about to change my life forever. But the NDA agreements, investor confidentiality requirements, and competitive secrecy needed in tech meant I'd had to endure 18 months of family concern, disappointment, and increasingly harsh judgment about my career choices. "Maya, there you are," my mother said as I approached our designated table area, her voice carrying that familiar mixture of love and worry that had characterized most of our conversations lately. "Come sit with the adults. Uncle Raj wants to talk to you about some job opportunities." I internally cringed. Uncle Raj worked in corporate consulting and had been trying to help me find employment for months, completely unaware that I was about to become one of the youngest self-made millionaires in our extended family. "Maya, beta," Uncle Raj said as I sat down, launching immediately into career counseling mode. "I've been talking to some contacts at PwC and Deloitte. They're looking for people with your background and I think I can get you interviews. You can't stay unemployed forever." "I appreciate the thought, Uncle Raj, but I'm actually working on something right now." "Working on what?" Aunt Priya interjected, settling into the conversation with the enthusiasm she showed for all family gossip. "Naith, Xiao. You've been saying you're working on something for over a year. What exactly are you doing all day?" Aunt Priya is my father's sister, a successful real estate agent who'd built a solid business over 20 years and had very definite opinions about work ethic, financial responsibility, and the importance of steady employment. She also had zero understanding of how modern technology companies operated, or why someone might need to work in stealth mode during development phases. "I'm developing a tech solution for a specific market need," I said carefully, knowing this explanation would satisfy exactly no one at the table. "Tech solution," she repeated with a laugh. "Maya, everyone thinks they're going to get rich with an app these days. The reality is that 99% of these startup dreams fail, and people waste years of their lives chasing impossible fantasies." Around the table, various aunts and uncles nodded in agreement. They'd watched the dot-com boom and bust, seen friends lose money on questionable investments, and developed a healthy skepticism about anything that sounded too good to be true. "Maybe it's time to consider more practical options," suggested Aunt Mira, who worked in healthcare administration. "There are good jobs available if you're willing to start at entry level and work your way up like everyone else." Entry level, Uncle Raj agreed. Nothing wrong with that. We all started somewhere. I sat there listening to career advice from relatives who meant well, but had no understanding of what I'd actually been building over the past 2 years. While they saw unemployment and unrealistic dreams, I'd been working 18-hour days developing an app that solved a massive problem in supply chain management. Something that had attracted attention from major investors and companies that you'd definitely heard of. But the conversation was just getting started. You know what I think the real problem is? Aunt Priya said, warming to her subject as more family members drifted over to join the discussion. Maya's been too comfortable. When you have family support and no real financial pressure, it's easy to avoid making tough decisions about your career. That's not fair, Priya, my mother protested weakly. It's completely fair, Saida. Look around this room. Every single person here has built something real. Businesses, careers, families. Maya is 31 years old, and what does she have to show for it? A college degree she's not using and a lot of vague talk about tech projects that never seem to materialize. The criticism was getting harsher and more public. Other relatives were turning to listen, as Aunt Priya's voice carried across our section of the banquet hall. I could feel my cheeks burning as she continued her assessment of my life choices. I mean, let's be honest about what unemployment at 31 really means, she said, gesturing with her wine glass in a way that suggested this wasn't her first drink of the evening. It means you're not taking responsibility for your adult life. It means you're still living like a college student while the rest of us handle real responsibilities. Priya, that's enough, my father said firmly, but the damage was already done. The conversation had shifted from concern to public judgment, and several cousins were now watching the drama unfold with obvious interest. I'm just saying what everyone's thinking, Aunt Priya continued, clearly enjoying the attention her honesty was generating. We all love Maya, but someone needs to tell her the truth. This tech dream isn't happening. She needs to get a real job and start building a real life before it's too late. And what exactly constitutes a real life? I asked quietly, finally responding to the escalating criticism. Financial independence. Professional respect. Contributing something meaningful to society instead of playing around with apps that nobody wants. The word playing hit me like a slap. While she thought I was playing, I'd been working harder than I'd ever worked in my life, developing something that major corporations were about to pay millions for. Maya's problem, Aunt Priya announced to the growing audience, is that she thinks she's too good for regular jobs. She wants to be special, to skip all the hard work the rest of us did and jump straight to being rich and famous. That's not what I think, I said, but she wasn't finished. Then prove it. Get a job. Any job. Show us you're willing to work instead of just dreaming. The public nature of the criticism was humiliating, but what made it worse was seeing other relatives nod in agreement. People I loved and respected were watching me be torn apart by someone who had no understanding of what I'd actually been doing with my time. She'll figure it out, Cousin Arjun said diplomatically, trying to diffuse the tension. Everyone finds their path eventually. Eventually isn't good enough when you're 31, Aunt Priya shot back. At some point, dreaming becomes delusion. I excused myself from the table and spent the rest of the reunion trying to avoid further career counseling sessions, but the damage was done. Word had spread that Maya was still unemployed and apparently delusional about her prospects. The pitying looks and well-meaning advice continued throughout the evening, culminating in Aunt Priya's parting words as families began heading to their hotel rooms. Maya, beta, I hope you'll think about what I said tonight. You're a smart girl, but smart doesn't pay bills. It's time to come back to reality. I went to my hotel room that night feeling lower than I'd felt in months. Not because I doubted my path, but because being publicly dismissed by people whose opinions mattered to me was genuinely painful. But I also went to bed knowing something they didn't, that in less than 12 hours, everything they thought they knew about my life was going to change forever. If you've ever been publicly criticized by family for choices they didn't understand, type misunderstood path in the comments. What comes next is going to show you exactly how sweet vindication can be when it comes from the most unexpected source. At 11:47 p.m., exactly 18 hours after Aunt Priya had finished her public assessment of my life choices, every smartphone in our extended family received the same push notification from their news apps. The notification read, Fortune magazine releases 40 under 40 list, young entrepreneurs reshaping business. Most people ignored it, Business news wasn't exactly riveting content for a Saturday night after a family reunion. But my cousin Arjun, who worked in finance and subscribed to multiple business publications, opened the article out of professional curiosity. What he found made him immediately call his sister Kavya, who was staying 3 rooms down from him in the same hotel. Kavya, you need to open the Fortune article that just got pushed to your phone. I'm trying to sleep. Just open it. Look at number 7 on the list. There it was, with a professional headshot I'd taken for investor presentations. Maya Patel, 31, founder and CEO of Supply Chain Solutions. PAL's revolutionary supply chain optimization platform has attracted $47 in Series B funding and partnerships with Fortune 500 companies, including Amazon, Walmart, and Target. Her app reduces logistics costs by up to 34% while improving delivery efficiency, making her one of the most watched entrepreneurs in the B2B software space. Kavya screenshotted the article and immediately posted it in our family WhatsApp group with the message, guys, is this our Maya? Within 15 minutes, the group chat was exploding with messages as family members across the hotel, and those who'd returned home, opened the Fortune article and saw my photo staring back at them. Uncle Raj, this can't be real. Maya, is this you? Cousin Priya, not Aunt Priya, my younger cousin. Holy shit, Maya. You're on Fortune's 40 under 40. Mom, language, Priya, dat. But also, Maya, is this true? Dad, I'm calling Maya right now. And Mira, $47 million, Maya? Nairil. My phone started ringing at 12:03 a.m. It was my father, and I could hear multiple voices in the background. Clearly, several relatives had gathered in someone's hotel room for an emergency family meeting about this revelation. Maya, Beta, we just saw the Fortune article. Is this real? Are you really running a $47 million company? It's real, Dad. But how, when? You said you were unemployed. I was never unemployed. I've been building this company for the past 2 years. I couldn't talk about it because of confidentiality agreements and competitive secrecy requirements. $47 million, he repeated, as if saying the number might make it feel more believable. That's the current valuation based on our Series B funding round, which closed 2 weeks ago. The announcement was embargoed until today. Maya, everyone's here. Your aunts, uncles, cousins. We're all trying to understand how this happened without us knowing. It happened because I've been working 18-hour days for 2 years, developing something revolutionary while you all thought I was unemployed and directionless. In he background, I could hear Aunt Priya's voice. Let me talk to her. Let me talk to Maya. The phone was passed around, and suddenly I was on speaker with what sounded like half the family gathered around. Maya. Aunt Priya's voice was completely different from how it had sounded 8 hours earlier. I need to apologize. I had no idea. No, you didn't have any idea. But you were very confident in your assumptions. The article says you have partnerships with Amazon and Target. How did you? When did you? I've been building these relationships for 18 months, while you all assumed I was sitting around dreaming about getting rich quick. But why didn't you tell us? Uncle Raj asked. Why let us worry about you and offer job interviews when you were already building something incredible? Because I tried to explain that I was working on something important, and I was told I was delusional and needed to come back to reality. Because every time I mentioned my project, someone made it clear they thought I was wasting my time with impossible dreams. The silence that followed was heavy with realization. They were remembering their own words, their own assumptions, their own certainty that I was making poor life choices. Maya, my cousin Arjun said, the article mentions you've been working in stealth mode for competitive reasons. Is that why you couldn't tell us details? Partly. But mostly because every time I tried to share what I was working on, it was dismissed before I could explain the technology or the market opportunity. We were trying to help, Aunt Mira said weakly. You were trying to help based on incomplete information and assumptions about what success looks like. You saw someone without a traditional job and assumed failure instead of considering that maybe I was building something bigger than any job I could have taken. The conversation continued for another 30 minutes as family members asked questions about the technology, the funding, the partnerships, and the timeline for everything I'd accomplished while they thought I was unemployed. But the most important question came from Aunt Priya. Maya, can you forgive me for what I said tonight, for dismissing your work and calling it playing around with dreams? I can forgive you, but I need you to understand that your assumptions caused real harm. Being told I was delusional and irresponsible by people I love and respect was genuinely painful. I understand. I was completely wrong, and I'm ashamed of how I treated you. The issue isn't just that you were wrong about the specifics. It's that you were so certain you were right that you didn't consider other possibilities. You saw unemployment and immediately assumed failure instead of asking better questions about what I was actually doing. The call ended with promises to celebrate properly once everyone had processed this revelation, but I knew the real impact would unfold over the following days as the news spread through our extended network and people began to truly understand what had happened. By Sunday morning, the family WhatsApp group had over 200 messages of congratulations, apologies, and requests for more information about my company. Relatives who'd been offering career advice 18 hours earlier were now asking if I needed any help with business development, marketing, or expansion planning. The transformation in how my family treated me was immediate and dramatic. Suddenly, everyone wanted to understand the technology I'd developed, hear about my business strategy, and learn from my entrepreneurial experience. The same relatives who'd been concerned about my unemployment were now bragging to their friends about having a Fortune 40 under 40 entrepreneur in the family. But the most meaningful change was in Aunt Priya's behavior. She called me privately Sunday evening for a conversation that went far beyond the public apology she'd offered the night before. Maya, I've been thinking all day about what happened yesterday, and I realize I owe you more than just an apology. What do you mean? I need to examine why I was so quick to judge your choices, and so certain that my definition of success was the only valid one. That's thoughtful of you to consider. The truth is, I was intimidated by your willingness to take risks I would never take. When you quit your job to work on something uncertain, it made me uncomfortable because I've always chosen security over possibility. There's nothing wrong with choosing security, why? But there's something wrong with criticizing people who choose differently, especially when I didn't understand what they were actually building. That conversation marked the beginning of a much more honest and respectful relationship between Aunt Priya and me. She started asking genuine questions about entrepreneurship, expressing interest in my work, and treating my choices as valid rather than problematic. 6 months later, when my company was featured on the cover of Entrepreneur magazine, Aunt Priya was the first person to call with congratulations. I saw the magazine cover at the grocery store, she said, excitement clear in her voice. I bought 5 copies and showed the cashier that you're my niece. I'm so proud of you. Thank you. Priya auntie, that means a lot. Can I ask you something? That night at the reunion, when I said all those terrible things about your dreams and your work, did you know then that the fortune announcement was coming? I knew it was coming soon. The embargo lifted literally 12 hours after you finished telling everyone I needed to come back to reality. So you sat there and listened to me mock your work while knowing you were about to be recognized as one of the most successful young entrepreneurs in the country? I sat there and listened to you dismiss something you didn't understand while knowing that the recognition was coming whether you believed in it or not. That must have been incredibly difficult. It was. But it also taught me something important about patience and about letting results speak louder than arguments. The phone notification that made Aunt Priya's face go pale wasn't just a news alert, it was a reality check that forced my entire family to reconsider their assumptions about success, failure, and what it means to support someone's unconventional path. The niece they'd called unemployed and delusional had actually been building something extraordinary, while they worried about her future. The family member they'd pitied had become the family member they were proudest of. And the dreams they'd dismissed as unrealistic had turned into achievements that exceeded everyone's expectations. 1 year later, my company was acquired by Microsoft for $340 million. At the family celebration dinner, Aunt Priya gave a toast that acknowledged not just my success, but the lesson the whole family had learned about recognizing potential in unexpected forms. To Maya, she said, raising her glass, who taught us that sometimes the people who look most lost are actually exactly where they need to be. And to all of us, who learned that support and encouragement should never be conditional on understanding someone's path completely. The notification that lit up everyone's phone that night didn't just announce my inclusion on a prestigious list, it announced the end of being underestimated by people whose opinions mattered to me. Sometimes the most satisfying success isn't the money or the recognition, It's the moment when people who doubted you realize they were completely wrong about who you were and what you were capable of achieving. What dreams have your family dismissed as unrealistic? What success have you built while others worried about your choices? Thank you for listening to my story. If you've ever been called unemployed or directionless while actually building something extraordinary, you're not alone. Comment building in secret if you understand the power of working quietly toward goals others can't see yet. Share this story with someone who needs to know that the most meaningful achievements often happen when nobody's paying attention. Subscribe and hit the notification bell for more stories about family assumptions, entrepreneurial vindication, and the moment when hidden success becomes impossible to ignore. I'd love to know, should family members support unconventional paths even when they don't understand them? Or is it natural to express concern about non-traditional choices? Let me know in the comments. Remember, your success doesn't need their understanding to be real, but when that understanding finally comes, it transforms everything about how they see your choices and your potential.